Well, let's get to today's breaking story. The climate activist group Insulate Britain has this morning declared the M25 a site of non-violent civil resistance. They won't say exactly where they're going to be sitting down with one of their protests, or many of their protests, but they have asked drivers to either stick to 20 miles per hour or to avoid the M25 completely.
But after months of disruptions and the issue of climate change now at the top of the political agenda, is it time to stop? And how tolerant should we be of protests which disrupt our daily lives? Joining us now is Insulate Britain campaigner Tracey Mallaghan. You're in the studio, although you have been out on the road, and have you glued yourself to things?
I have done, yes.
You've done all of that, but today you're in the studio.
You went to prison for doing yourself to the dock, didn't you?
I have. I went to prison for asking a judge to do a better job.
Right.
Yeah.
We also have journalist Dawn Neeson, who actually, Dawn, you got caught up in an Extinction Rebellion protest, didn't you? And Insulate Britain, a sort of an offshoot of that. This was the Canning Town protest. Dawn, what do you make of... I mean, they've given us some warning this morning. Avoid the M25. Is that good enough?
Well, very useful around there. Yes. Well, I mean, how dare they? Who are they to lecture us on what roads we may or may not use? And then saying, well, if you are going to use the M25, you have to drive at 20 miles an hour. Well, I wasn't aware they were responsible for setting the rules of our highways these days. To be honest with you, around there, I'm with the majority of the country on this one. And we know that 53% of people are very, very, very angry and fed up with this situation. Only 16%, and I think that's shrinking by the day, Richard was right earlier, back what Insulate Britain, or Insult Britain, as I like to call them, are doing. And I just think it's time for this to stop. They are putting lives at risk.
Tracey, let's cut straight to that chase, OK?
Okay.
You've been quoted in interviews as saying about people who can't, for example, get to hospital appointments or operations or very serious emergencies, like the woman who suffered the stroke in the car and couldn't get to hospital because the road was blocked. She was with her son, who was helpless to help her, and she's now paralysed down one side and can't speak. And doctors have said conclusively that had she got to hospital uninterrupted, she wouldn't be in that state now. So that was a direct result of your protest. So let me ask you personally, straight away, what if that woman had been your mother? Would you still think you'd done the right thing if you put your mother basically into a coma?
I am finding all of this incredibly challenging, especially being in this studio and talking about it. But what I find myself thinking all the time is, why after 6 weeks are journalists still focused on the what we're doing and not the why? Is it because you're heartless or too scared to face the truth, Richard?
I promise you that we're going to keep the temperature low on this. We're going to have a proper exchange here, unlike the last one, when one of your representatives walked out after comparing himself to Winston Churchill.
Well, anyone should leave a hostile environment.
Yeah,
well, that was horrible for everyone.
But I must press you on that question and to answer it. That woman who was severely disabled because she was caught in your blockage could have been your mother. How would you feel if it had been your mother? Would you still have done, if you'd known that your mother was having a stroke in a car 50 yards behind the blockage, would you have carried on? Would you have stopped to getting to hospital?
Please, anybody, if you know someone having a stroke, phone an ambulance, right? That's the responsible message.
No, but an ambulance couldn't get to her.
I thought you were going to let me finish.
No,
right?
but you're not,
I would like to answer you,
if you answer the question.
About my mum, I'm going to, you know.
All right, OK.
So phone an ambulance, that's responsible messaging. If it was my mum, of course, at the time, I would be furious and heartbroken. But when you then go home, we have to look at the reality. 3 to 4 years to save the future of humanity. Do you know what that means for my children?
So you'd allow your own mother to have a near-fatal stroke?
3 to 4 years before my kids face an unimaginable future, Richard.
Question, are you?
And you're not asking the right questions. 3 to 4 years.
Well, that's my decision, to be honest with you.
Is it because you're heartless or too scared to look at the reality of our situation? I'm genuinely perplexed why journalists are not asking the right questions here. Do you know what a 2-degree world looks like? A 95% chance of a 2-degree world for our children. Do you know what that looks like?
You mentioned your children. I mean, what you're doing
Why can't we talk about it? That's the conversation, Richard.
Darling, what you're doing is, sorry to call you darling, it's a habit of mine.
You've already been told off, haven't you, sweetheart?
And quite rightly, it's a showbiz thing. We all use that word in this thing, so I completely take that back. Let's just get back to the question, because the question is what's important.
Please ask the right questions, Richard.
No, what you're doing is, you see, you're replying to a question with your own questions. You're not actually giving an answer.
But what you're doing is framing the questions around individuals and not my children's future. Now, a 2-degree world means my children facing famine, drought, starvation, 1 billion people on the move, and that means they face war. And you're all asking me to go home, be a good girl, write letters and sell our children out. Why are you doing that? Are you heartless or scared? Have you read the reports, Richard? You're a journalist.
What if your child was seriously ill.
All of our children are in huge
dear.
trouble. The people of Britain, all of our children are in trouble and they need us to grow up.
OK, so the UN Environment Programme assessed all the targets announced by countries to go net zero by the end of last month. And they concluded that the net zero pledges could make a big difference. And it said, if fully implemented, these pledges could bring the predicted global temperature rise to 2.2%, providing hope that future action could still head off the most catastrophic impacts of climate change. So you're saying we don't look at the facts. You're saying that you, Insulate Britain, are the only way to alert the world and alert us all to the problems of climate change. And you're saying that actually that nothing is being done. Well, Australia just announced that they're going to go to net zero by 2030. The UK have said it. There's a COP26. What makes you think, as Dawn Neeson will probably say, that you are the arbiters of all opinion, of all policy, of people's daily lives, and that you have this sort of warrior mentality, which means that you cannot answer a question about a person who has suffered a stroke and whether it is OK for you to... You can stand back from that situation, but that family can't stand back. They are in that situation.
None of us can stand back. Do you know what a 2-degree world means?
What I'm saying is
you're
that
not letting me talk, right? This is what is happening. Our journalists are letting us down. Our government is about to break a legally binding agreement to keep us below 2 degrees. How do you feel about that? Why can I not find a single journalist who wants to speak to me about the trouble my children are in? All of our children are in. That is the reality of our situation.
Dawn, actually?
Are you heartless scared, or are you not looking at the actual information?
Well, I've just
the
literally
reality?
read to you what the UN are saying.
And what have they said? They said we need to take action, we need to do things.
And
now,
that the pledges being made, if they are kept.
If they are kept.
Well, absolutely, but you don't know.
But insulation is in our government's manifesto. Every journalist I've talked to has agreed that, yes, we need to get on with the job. But even with people, and we are just people and mums, sitting in the road, they still won't get on with it. So if they're not even doing the most
sitting in the
basic thing, doing that, then why do you think our government are doing anything to protect our children?
I mean, Dawn, you know, does she have a point here that we do have report after report after report, pledges and pledges, and yet we're still in a situation where people are extremely worried about the future for their children, that we are in somehow impotent to sort of actually make genuine change, and that they feel actually they are the voice of panic, because it sounds like panic, but panic is what's
reality.
needed.
Well, we don't have to panic. And I'd like to ask Tracey, does she know how many eco-grant properties have been insulated in the last couple of years by the government? I mean, you know, we are getting there. We are doing something. And the hysteria that I can hear in Tracey's voice is frankly not helping their cause in any way, shape or form. Now, I'm about as green as you can possibly get. And I do support the cause. I do support the cause 100%. But I do not think gluing your face to a piece of tarmac is going to help anybody. And I'd also like to ask Tracey, and we've got COP26 coming up next week, and your leader, Roger Hallam, did say that he wanted our thousands of yous lot arrested to clog up the criminal justice system during the conference and embarrass Boris Johnson. Now, that is, again, putting people's lives at risk. In Glasgow, you're using the forces of law and order to unglue you rather than protecting dignitaries. And we've already had one MP murdered recently, let's not forget. So, Tracey, are you still planning to do that? Are you still planning to disrupt COP26 by more of this utter insanity, which is not helping your cause, something we all believe in, by the way? And what gives you the right to tell us in this hysterical manner you have, which is frankly more worrying, that, you know, you are in the right and we are all in the wrong?
It's so insulting, isn't it? Because I'm emotional, I'm a woman and I'm hysterical. Look, it's not on single
Tracey,
mums.
I'm a woman as
Let me
well.
answer, sweetheart. It's not on single mums to read science reports, to watch Prime Minister's questions, to watch select committees. We trust that if our children were in danger, our government and our media would let us know. And the truth is, I didn't hear that a Parliament had declared a climate emergency until October 19. They declared it in May. Something has gone wrong. We aren't the doomers. I believe in British people. If we got on the same page, we can totally do what is necessary.
You see,
for our
well, I
children.
think a lot of people watching this will be thinking about you, and you represent the group, and this is exactly how your representatives make your arguments. As I was trying to say earlier, your technique, and it is a technique, and you obviously are quite skilled at it, is never to answer.
Thank you.
No, what you are is never to answer the question. You simply come up with you simply come up with a series of questions of your own, and that is not an honest way to do an interview. I'm going to try one more time. If your daughter, say.
So you're focusing on the individual. All of our children are in trouble. You have to stop this. Are you too scared, heartless, or are you stupid, Richard? Do you not understand?
You've said that 5 times.
Do you not understand?
I'm not stupid and I'm not heartless, and I don't really like being patronised in that way.
I feel like you're very much patronising me, Richard.
I'm asking you. I'm trying to ask you a really straightforward question, Tracy, and it's this: if you let me answer the question,
you're trying to distract the British public from focusing
and then you
on
can
the
decide
right
whether you want to answer it. If your daughter was stuck in a queue.
My daughter faces a 2-degree world, famine, drought, war. That is what all of our children face, Richard.
It's no good, is it?
And you want to focus on just the individuals. That's why we're in this mess.
No, we're just not going to get anywhere, are we? Because you just won't listen to the question.
Because you refuse to ask the right questions, and I honestly don't
know the end of any of the
because you're
questions
heartless
that I've
or scared. I've been asked the same questions for 6 weeks. You keep focusing on the what, and we need to focus on the why.
How much would it cost to retrofit old housing stock in the UK?
It's going to cost a lot of money.
How much is a lot?
It is going to cost a lot of money. The reports vary. It's up to maybe £20,000 for some houses, but our housing stock is different. The Sun says maybe 1.4 trillion.
Is your house insulated?
You can really have a go at me. I'm disabled.
I'm just asking you.
I'm on benefits and in a housing association.
It's an open question. It's a perfect question.
It doesn't work. We've got to stop this individual thinking. A chain is as strong as its weakest link. We need to all forget what we were told, that there's no such thing as society. We need to come together.
So you think it would cost £20,000 a house?
The only choice our kids have is if we believe in the British spirit and we get together and we get on the same page and face this. We can't keep avoiding the issue. Our kids need us to be brave.
What if somebody dies today on the M25 as a direct result of these protests? What will you think then?
I am going to cry, like I have done many days through this campaign. I hate it. I hate disrupting people. I hate it, Richard. But what I hate more is that I can't get into a space and have a serious conversation about what our children face.
You hate it, but you're going to do it anyway.
Because our children face a 2-degree world. Do you know what that looks like? Are you prepared to just let that happen?
No, because I'm
our government are going to break a legal agreement to keep us below 2 degrees. How do you feel about that? Where is Boris answering for that?
So could I ask you, there's a budget tomorrow. So if tomorrow you were in charge of the budget, what would you take away from the NHS or from the policing? Because the money has to come from somewhere. So how would you
invite me back on for another talk about the economy?
Well, no, because it's about how much
it...
See, this is the issue. You want to talk about the facts.
Right, and the facts are our government can find money for their own pockets. The test and trace. Look, you cover all these stories, but you never put them together. £37 billion wasted on something we actually need.
So would 37 billion...
In their back pocket.
Right, well,
there's
not necessarily
money for those that are in the club, aren't there? The West Monster bubble is killing us all, and I need you to do a better job. Please, you're journalists. Please, you have kids. A 2-degree world.
We are really trying to do the best job we can, but it's very difficult when you have somebody sitting opposite you who won't answer a single question, who simply uses the opportunity to come here to proselytise. And that's what you're doing. You're proselytising every single question.
I am pleading for the truth to be heard.
No, you just come out with statements.
Look, when I spoke to your people backstage, they asked about my story. I had this whole list of questions that I thought I was going to be answering, and I really hoped we were going to have that honest discussion. You didn't think we were going to ask you about the consequences of your actions today? But I come in here and you hit me with the same things for 6 weeks.
You're doing the same things for 6 weeks.
Because you still won't talk about the why, and you're still talking about the what we're doing and not the why. We need to talk about the why.
We absolutely are talking about what you're doing because it's having a massive impact on real people.
You haven't mentioned the 2-degree world, the Chatham House report. You haven't mentioned any of the...
So all these people who
I would like to know where you take the money
from
from to insulate every single home.
That
is what Insulate Britain wants.
I take it from the people going into space on rockets shaped like dicks, to be honest with you. Come on, we're living in a mad world. This has got to stop.
Sorry, was that a serious answer?
Do you really think that's not a serious answer?
Yes, I do.
Do you think that in a world that is burning, we should have people flying up to space in rockets? William Shatner came home and broke down in tears, right? Because he realised going up into a cold, dark space is ridiculous when our children are being failed by us. So where does the money come? It's there. If you're in the West Monster bubble and you've got mates, there's been lots of money put in back pockets, hasn't there, over COVID?
Tracy, thank you very much indeed for coming in, but not answering a single question. You're watching Good Morning Britain on ITV.